Kathleen. Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I want to start out today and tell you about a story about a man named Henry. Henry liked to party. He liked to have a good time. But one day, Henry died. And off he went to the pearly gates, and there was St. Peter. And St. Peter says to him, Henry, you've done a lot of good in your life, and you've done a lot of bad. So I'm going to give you a choice. You can either go to hell or go to heaven. And Henry thought about it, and he says, I'd really like to visit both places before I make a decision. Can I do that? And then St. Peter goes, I suppose we can do that. So he ships him off down to hell, and he's at the gates. And there's this guy standing at the gate. He's got swim trunks on, glasses, and he's got the bronzed tan. He's got a bucket of iced beer. And Henry goes, what? This is great. Henry, he says, come on in. We've been waiting for you. Want a beer? Sure. Henry liked to party. So he gets in there, and it's beautiful sandy beaches and beautiful sky blue water. People are having a great time barbecuing. And he thought, this is great. This is not like what everybody told me it was. And so he was there for a while, and then he left, and he went back up to St. Peter, and St. Peter says, so what'd you think? It was great. It was just like paradise. And St. Peter goes, well, you ready to go into heaven? Sure. So he goes into heaven, and it was just beautiful. Beautiful green pastures. Everything was calm. These babbling brooks. Birds singing, and everyone there was so nice and loving and caring and peaceful. He thought, this is really nice. Everybody's so nice here. So he got done there, and he went back out to St. Peter. And St. Peter says, well, did you make a decision? He goes, well, it's kind of hard, heaven's nice, but it's kind of boring. He goes, I think I'll go to hell. St. Peter says, okay. Ships him off down to hell, and there he is at the gates, and there's the devil waiting. And he goes, Henry, come on in, we've been waiting for you. And Henry walks in, and it was dark and fiery, and he's looking around. People are running after each other, screaming and wailing, and misery and suffering. And he's got this duped look on his face like, oh no, I just made a mistake. And he looks at the devil and he says, what's going on here? When I came down here, there were sandy white beaches. It was paradise, beautiful blue skies. Everyone was having a great time. And the devil looks at him, and he's got a big grin on his face, and he puts his arm around Henry, and he says, Henry, I see you met our marketing department. so watch out. Things ain't always as they seem. Have you ever had that experience where you've been duped or manipulated, where you thought you were getting one thing and you got another? Maybe it was buying a car and you find out it's a lemon. Or you're in a relationship and you just don't know this person. You find out so many things later. It's like, wow, what's this? And I remember having this experience a long time ago. I was at this retreat. I was in my early 30s, and it was a church retreat, and the way they had it set up, they had two groups. They had the youth, the teenagers, and then they had the adults. And you go to your groups, and then sometime during the day, you'd meet up together, the adults and the youth. And I remember the first day I was there, there was this young lady there. She's probably 16 or 17. And I was so impressed by her. She was so confident, articulate, and she spoke so well. She carried herself so well. And I was feeling kind of squeamish, a ting of jealousy. Like, man, when I was that age, I was so tongue-tied and shy. It's like, God. And so time went on, and throughout the workshop, or the retreat, got into the third day, and the two groups met again. And this young lady got up and spoke again, and she's crying. And she's talking about how she was almost committed suicide, and all the abuse and pain and suffering that she went through. To say the least, I was shocked. Are you kidding me? Is this the same person I saw a couple days ago? I couldn't believe that. And I've thought about that over the years, and I look back on that, and I was a lot like that. Acted a certain way, but underneath I felt like something else. She projected this image of who she was. And just like her, I was playing a role. I had it all together. This quiet type that nothing bothered me. I wasn't as articulate as her, but I sure played that quiet, self-sufficient type that didn't need anything. I played the role of the good Catholic boy, the dutiful son. And I wonder if that was a family trait that was passed down from generation to generation. My dad was a guy who was a very kind and supportive guy. He worked hard, and he kept his hands to the grindstone, so to speak. And from the time I could remember as a little kid, my dad suffered from rheumatoid arthritis. He'd be in and out of the hospitals and clinics, trying to get some relief. But the pain always got worse. And I remember when I was about 6 years old, he was a carpenter in construction, and he moved from carpentry into real estate because the pain, the heavy lifting and all that was just too much for him. And as time went on, I just watched him as his fingers start to cripple up and get tighter, and his body got stiff and tight. And I remember my mom and my sisters, we'd work on him, like doing stretching exercises to loosen up his joints and his body, and just loosen up all that stiffness. And we also did this wax therapy. You take these old wool socks on, put them over his hands and his feet, and then you put plastic over the top of the wool socks. Then you'd heat up this pan of wax on the gas stove, and he'd stick his hands in there and his feet in there, and the heat from the wax would help relieve the pain in his joints so they could loosen up. And the thing is, I never seen him cry or complain. Once in a while, when he couldn't take the pain, he'd get angry and frustrated and blow up. But I never seen him cry with all that pain. And then when I was in college, my dad developed cancer, and he had internal bleeding, and then he died. And then within the next year and a half, I had a pet dog, childhood dog that died, and my grandma Isabel died, all in a very short time. And these were three beings that were very close to me and who I connected with. Then over time, I started to think and act like my dad. When I died, I kind of took over his role. At the funeral, people are telling me, you need to take care of things now. You're the boy in the family. And so I did. And just like my dad, it was that, tough German work ethic, And over the next several years, my body started falling apart. I started breaking bones, having careless accidents. But you just keep going on, nothing to it. And then a few years later, I was at work and I was lifting something, and I pulled something in my lower abdomen, like a muscle pull. I was like, what is that? So I went to the doctor, and he says, you got a hernia. And I thought, what? And that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. I started to wake up a little bit. Something is going on here. And I was really frustrated. And from that point, I started to question things. Why am I falling apart? I was in great shape at the time. It was kind of the prime of my life, And I just felt great. And I remember one day I was sitting on the couch, and there's this candle on the table next to me. I said, oh, let's light that and just chill out, because I was just really frustrated. So I lit the candle, and I was looking at the flame, just chilling out, and as I sat there and relaxed, I'm just pondering what's going on. What's going on? Why am I in such troubles with health? And this little voice inside, it was as clear as day. It said, it's the feelings. And it's the feelings. You know, I really didn't understand it, but then I started thinking about it more, like expressing feelings or repressing feelings. And yeah, no one ever really talked about grief or anything like that. And that was all new to me. And that's kind of when I started on my healing journey. And when I think about it, it was like God taking a spiritual 2x4 upside the head, you know, whack! Wake up. This is not who you are. It might have worked before, but it's time to wake up and do something different. You know, and along the way, not only did I have health problems, I had a lot of relationship problems too. Everything was falling apart, you know, friends, family, and even the church. So as I moved forward in life, I looked at different spiritual centers, churches, and also looked at different modalities. I began to realize that healing is not one-dimensional. It is a spiritual, mental, emotional, psychological, and physical phenomena. So I started to look at different holistic healing modalities, things like meditation and qigong, traditional Chinese medicine, chakra healing, Ayurvedic medicine, vegetarian diets, protein diets, success workshops. The list goes on and on and on. I read hundreds of books and tapes, CDs and videos. And as my wife Stephanie will say, you know, can't you get rid of some of those? It's cluttering up the house. So she had to deal with all of it. But in a way, they all helped. You know, when I was off course, they helped me center again. Kind of like a plane with automatic pilot, you go off course and it brings you back on course again. So they all helped. And watching my dad suffer for all those years, it made me wonder, why? Why him? What was going on there? And this has been a 34-year journey since my dad died. And I think about some of the main themes that were going through my head at the time and throughout the years. And it was thoughts like, I am not good enough. Nothing I say or do is worth anything. I need to do more. I need to be more. I need to work harder. When something goes wrong, it's my fault. I am bad and evil. Those are some of the thoughts that were rolling through my head throughout the year. And I wonder sometimes, did my father have some of those same thoughts? I titled the talk today, God's Marketing Department, because it seems we have two parts of ourself. One that's full of goodness and peace. I call that God's Marketing Department. And the other one's drama and conflict and the potential for violence. That part of us that's always wanting and needing something outside of ourselves. The part that thinks we are separate from all things. I call that the ego's marketing department. I remember a phrase in Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life. She says, in each one of us, we have every quality and attribute. While we may not choose to do so, we are capable of being a Hitler or a Mother Teresa. And Eckhart Tolle, in his book A New Earth, talks about our dual nature. Form and formlessness. And he talks about our inherent dysfunction as human beings. He says, when we look at all the ancient religions and spiritual traditions, we find that underneath all the surface differences, there are two core concepts that most of them agree on. The first part of this truth is the realization that the normal state of mind of most human beings contains a strong element of what we might call dysfunction or madness. The Hindu tradition calls it Maya, which translates into the illusion or appearance of the phenomenal world. Buddhists call it dukkha, which translates to suffering, unsatisfactoriness, and just plain misery. And according to the Christian teachings, the normal collective state of humanity is one of original sin, which Eckhart says has been greatly misunderstood. Sin means to miss the mark, like an archer missing his target. To sin is to miss the point of human existence, to live unskillfully, blindly, and to suffer and to cause suffering. And he says the human mind is very intelligent and has created some miraculous things, but is tainted by madness. Madness we have seen over the last 100 years with all the technology that we have used to commit murder and violence against our perceived enemies. But he also says, out of this defect of our human mind comes the good news of the possibility of the transformation of human consciousness. The transformation of human consciousness. In Hindu teachings, and sometimes in Buddhism, they call it enlightenment. In the teachings of Jesus, call it salvation. And in Buddhism, the end of suffering. And Eckhart goes on to say, the greatest works of humanity is not the works of art, science, and technology, but the recognition of its own dysfunction, its own madness. Later, he goes on to say, to recognize one's own insanity is, of course, the rising of sanity. And he talks about all the different religions and different belief systems of the different religions, and how these different beliefs cause all the violence and fighting. I have my belief, and if you don't believe what I believe, I'm going to kill you. Or I'm going to attack you. And my father-in-law is here today, and we joke around quite a bit about this. We talk about two things we're not supposed to talk about. Politics and religion. Yeah. And we're still talking to each other. We still like each other. I like what Byron Katie said, in, she's the author of Loving What Is. She says, when we believe our thoughts, we suffer. And when we question our thoughts, we don't suffer. We put them into the light of inquiry. And she goes on to say that ultimately, none of our thoughts are real. This solid physical form is an illusion. If we look beyond the form, there is this one mind, this one power, this one presence, and this one life that connects us all. And of all the definitions I've ever heard of love, you have the love and romantic love, and you hear all these definitions. The best I've heard is from Eckhart Tolle. And he says this: love is being one with life. I like that. It means that we are grounded and connected in life. There is no other. We are all in this together, this one spirit, this one mind. And we know that the only enemy is of our mental household. And when we are connected to life and become the watcher of our mind, a higher intelligence flows in. We are then in the here and now. We then have access to all the power, all the wisdom, and all the intelligence of the universe to live a healthy, prosperous life. Or as my grandma used to say, I'm healthy, wealthy, and wise. I don't know if you ever heard that before. I used to hear that as a kid. I'm healthy, wealthy, and wise. And most of us have heard the quote by Jesus when he said, "It is not I, but the Christ's presence or the Father within that does the work. I of my own self can do nothing, and you can do even greater works." I of my own self. What is that? It's this physical form. You know, with our physical senses, we see physical forms as being separate. But here they're saying we are all one. And we are all connected. And we know that we'll stop harming each other. Because as we do unto others, we do to ourselves. Peace. Be still. And know that I am. This is the voice of God's marketing department. When we start to listen to the whispers within, then all this divine intelligence and wisdom, the abundance, this power and peace that passes all understanding, passes through us, in us and through us. We have opened the door. We have knocked. And the abundance has come in. That gift of life has come in. Many spiritual teachers tell us that the most important question we can ask is, who am I? Have you ever asked yourself that? Who am I? And you know, sometimes the answer is right in front of our face. You ever think about that? Can you read this with me from left to right? I am light. I am love. I am peace. And I say, yes, you are. Namaste.